Hey, everybody. We're back for the Sports Bookmaking Podcast Bookends here at Sunset Station. It's Jason. This is our mascot teaser. I'm Chucky. Before we jump into this week's pro football games, Jay, it's kind of bowl season. You know, I think there's not a lot of college football going on right now, but we do have all the bowl games up, and it's highlighted by the two college football playoff games. And, you know, one of them features Cincinnati, the first non-Power 5 school ever to be in the playoffs. So I think they're kind of two intriguing matchups with Georgia, Michigan, and Bama and Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the debate on who should have gotten the playoff and who shouldn't have gotten the playoff, and I think the committee, by what they did for the last several weeks, you could see it kind of leading up that if the games played out the way they did that past Saturday, that Cincinnati was going to find their way in. The big question mark would have been if Oklahoma State would have been able to beat Baylor, would Oklahoma State have been able to leapfrog Cincinnati and find themselves in the playoff? But I like where we're at, and like you said, Cincinnati, a 2-touchdown dog against Alabama, which is strange to see as we get into a playoff that we have that big of a point spread. And the early money has been on Alabama. We've even seen it creep up to some places have Alabama as much as a 14-point favorite. And we opened Georgia a 7-point favorite over Michigan. That line's creeped up to 7.5. There's even some higher numbers
out there,
than that out there. And that spells out to be a great game. And I think one of the somewhat shockers last Saturday, and a lot of people lost their money, was on the Alabama outright win over Georgia. Most of our money was on Georgia in that game. And this sets up to where if those two teams take care of business, the two favorites in the game, that we'll get to see the SEC championship game all over again. And we'll see if we'll have a different outcome. But again, to have Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide as an underdog, that hadn't happened for 92 games or something like that.
2016. I was going to touch on that. I mean, and it was bet like they didn't even care about that. They were betting Georgia pretty well in that game. I mean, we needed Alabama in that game, and it just goes to show you the strength of Nick Saban.
Well, when the way Alabama looked against Auburn the week before didn't give you a lot of confidence that they were going to be able to go and do what they did against Georgia. And now they lose their big receiver, Mechie. We'll see if he's able to make it back. I don't think that's going to happen for them. So we'll see what happens in this game. But it's a great lead up, and like you said, bowl season's here. We do have the one Saturday game, Army-Navy, so we're not completely absent of football on the board this Saturday, but we kind of turn to college basketball as we go into this weekend. A lot of great college basketball on the board, several top 25 matchups going on this weekend. I know UCLA plays Marquette. Illinois plays Arizona this week. So again, look at that college basketball schedule. There's some good games there.
When you look at a traditional college football, Saturday, you're talking about 50 or 60 games on the board, and you think about college hoops, it's about 3 times that. So there's a lot of games on the board for you guys to look at and target. And we know this time of year everybody's so busy. It's a great time to have STN Sports, have it on your mobile device. It really does bring the sports book to you. We know everyone's going to be hanging Christmas lights and honey to-do lists and out shopping. So get STN Sports. Still got up to that $100 bonus going on. And if you put in 50 or more, you get one of those cool STN Sports caps. We're going to talk about football now. Let's jump into this week. Baltimore and Cleveland. These two teams played a few weeks ago. Very low-scoring game. Baltimore wins that game 16-10. Both these teams have played a lot of unders of late, but 65% of the wagers are on the dog in this game, and that's Baltimore right now against Cleveland.
Yeah, and Baltimore was able to pull out the 16-10 just 2 weeks ago in a game. I believe Lamar Jackson threw 4 interceptions, and I remember we were at halftime just watching the
first half was ugly, right?
Mayfield fumble, Lamar throws an interception. So not often does an NFL team turn the ball over 4 times and find themselves still on the winning side of things. So the Ravens, this is a spot for them. But Cleveland at home, if they can get Chubb going, he's a guy that can present any problem for any defense.
Yep, I think it's a big game for both these two teams right now. As strange as it sounds, Cleveland's in last place in the AFC North right now because Pittsburgh's actually ahead of them with a 6-5-1 record. So it's a Cleveland team that early in the year I thought could win that division, could win a playoff game. They won a playoff game last year against Pittsburgh, but they find themselves on the outside kind of looking in right now.
We'll see if they have to get the ball to Landry. He had a really good game against them, against the Ravens the last time out. I think he had 10 receptions and over 100 yards. So if Chubb's able to get going and they can find Landry on the back end, they've got a chance to stay in this game. And Lamar Jackson's really been hit and miss. He starts games really slow.
He finishes strong.
And late in the game is when they come down and make plays. So expect this to be one of those, hopefully coming down to the end and see who can finally make a play.
Here's a game, too, in the NFC, which I think it's one of the more interesting games of the week. In the NFC East, it's the Cowboys at Washington. Washington football team has the longest winning streak in the NFC, which is hard to believe. They're playing so good right now. They win ugly. Cowboys are over a field goal favor in that game. Cowboys haven't been great of late. They've done kind of what they've had to. We've looked at that division all year and said, oh, it's going to be a Cowboys division, easy win. But slowly, Washington has kind of made some noise, and it's Tyler Heineke, it's Antonio Gibson, it's McLaren. It's a defense that has a couple of their studs out. But they find ways to win, and they're getting points at home. Don't forget, this is a team that beat Tampa in Washington a few weeks ago, so we'll see if Dallas and that high-powered offense can get it going in Washington. Only 54% of the tickets are on Dallas, so Washington is getting a lot of backing from the bettors as well.
And it's gone down. Cowboys actually opened a 5-point favorite, and it's come down to a 4-point favorite, so there was some money on Washington to go there. The Washington football team kind of reminds me of the moniker, if you remember the old 80s Chicago White Sox. It was winning ugly.
Right? Yeah.
That is this Washington football team. They win ugly. They don't put a lot of points up.
They go for it on fourth all the time.
They don't let the other offense get on the field. Every series they grind out that play clock. They run the ball a lot. You talk about the short down yardage. Ron Rivera goes for it a lot on fourth down to keep drives going. They play a lot of unders. Dallas is just they've had to kind of get right. They've had to get players back on the field, get their offense back on the field. So finally, I think they're going to have Cooper, Lamb, Gallup all ready to go, Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. It's been very rare to have all those pieces of the puzzle playing in a single game. Didn't play a particularly good game against the Saints last week. Taysom Hill
don't
was
have
able
to
run on
right,
him.
yeah.
And again, Taysom Hill kind of threw 4 interceptions to let the Cowboys stay in that game. So this becomes a key divisional battle. And again, from a playoff standpoint, the Cowboys are sitting on top of the East, but this is, again, a huge game for Washington to find themselves battling for that wild card spot.
Yeah, very true. Here's a game, that's going to feature the team in our backyard, the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders are really struggling right now. They're playing at Kansas City. They got beat on primetime a few weeks ago, 41-14. Bettors are back in Kansas City. 62% of the tickets are on Kansas City. They have the second longest winning streak in the AFC. We're not talking about the other team because they're on a bye this week, and that's the Patriots, who are red hot right now. But this Chiefs team is getting right, especially on defense. Only 1 touchdown they've given up in their last 4 games. Offense still struggles a little bit, but I think they'll get on track. Bettors are really back in the Chiefs again right now, and 62% of the tickets are against our Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, the Chiefs settled for a lot of field goals this past week, and against the Raiders, playing here in Las Vegas, they didn't have to settle for a lot of field goals. The Raiders were unable to stop Travis Kelce, who they have really struggled to stop in the history of the Chiefs Raiders matchups over the last 5 years. Travis Kelce's it's probably his favorite team to play against, and Tyreek Hill had a big game there as well. So if they've got to find a way, this linebacking core has got to find a way to control Kelce. And the Chiefs are also getting done with the running game. They're adding Clyde Edwards-Helaire, him out of the backfield as well. So this is going to be a game where the offense is going to have to come to play, because the Chiefs are going to be able to score on the Raiders. Derek Carr's got to find a way, and with no Waller, they've really struggled to kind of put the points up. So Deshaun Jackson or somebody's going to have to make some really big plays. Hunter Renfrow can't be the guy that you have to go to all the time. They've got to find some other piece of that offense.
Raiders were really competitive with them last year. I mean, they split with them last year. Easily could have won both games last year, but got beat up in the first game this year. So it's a huge game to the Raiders right now to kind of get back into that playoff.
Can't have that slow start that they've continued to have week after week after week.
It's a microcosm of what happened last year. They got off to that really good start early in the season, then tailed off. Same thing this year. And last year they couldn't win at home. This year they're below 500 at home as well. They're 3-4. They've lost home games to Chicago and to Washington. Both were kind of winnable games. If they win those 2 games, they're sitting at 8-4 right now instead of 6-6. So they've kind of let some games at home get away from them. Seattle and Houston. Seattle got the big win last week against San Francisco, although Pete Carroll almost gave it away. That's another story. But 80%, the highest percentage of tickets on any game this week are on the Seahawks against the Texans. They're over a touchdown favorite. Seahawks have only 4 wins, but if you look at their schedule down the stretch, it's a relatively easy schedule. They could still make a run, and even at 4 wins right now, find themselves maybe in a spot for that last wild card spot.
Yeah, and I don't think this is as much of I like the Seahawks and I'm playing that 80% that you talk about.
Fade the Texans.
It's more that the Texans are just they're going to turn back to Davis Mills at quarterback this week with Tyrod Taylor playing poor. I guess it's a whole team game, and it's not just on him. He doesn't have the time to throw the football. But to watch the Colts just run through them and fail to score last week, this is kind of you talk about fading teams or fading picks. This is just Houston Texans are an easy bet against, and Seattle gets the big win over San Francisco, so you gain a little bit more confidence that they're going to be able to score, and Russell Wilson's going to be able to find Metcalf or Lockett to open this game up.
You just don't know with Seattle. I mean, there's so many rumblings out there that Wilson would be interested in a trade, to Denver, to the Giants or the Saints. I mean, this season isn't even over yet, and they're already kind of talking about that. It's kind of been a lost season for Seattle with all that trade talk in the offseason and then his injury. Jags-Titans, a Titans team that just has had a ton of injuries. It looks like they're going to get Julio Jones back this week. 79% of the tickets are on the Titans. And I think similar to what we just talked about, it's to fade the Jags. I mean, the Titans are kind of beat up right now. They're not playing their best ball as they were earlier in the season, but it's hard to put money on the Jags when a team struggles so bad.
Yeah, the Titans are also looking to potentially get Jeremy McNichols back. Obviously,
Right.
We know that they lost Derrick Henry. Foreman's been good. They picked up Adrian Peterson for a little bit there, and
He's
released
a Seahawk
him and
now.
got picked up by the Seahawks. But Titans getting a couple of their guys back, and like you said, this is a bet against Jacksonville because they've just been unable to produce on the offensive side of the football.
Yep. So we kind of looked at the first half of the games. We're going to come back in our next segment, guys, and jump on the next set of games, including the primetime games here on Bookends.
Damn, I look good. What's up, everybody? It's me, Stephen Money. It's football season, and I want you to know that you can bet on me, the STN Sports App. So sign up today and get started with me.
We're back on Bookends now. We're going to dive into the second half of the pro football schedule. Saints-Jets. Saints are almost a 7-point favorite in this game. 60% of the tickets are on the Saints. The big boost for them is Alvin Kamara looks to be back. He's been gone for the last 4 games. That offense has really struggled after Jameis Winston got hurt and Michael Thomas hasn't played all year. And you lose Kamara. Just the heart and soul of that offense was gone. Really struggled. We know they have a good defense, but offensively, I think that's a huge boost to get Kamara back. And it's 60% of the tickets are on the Saints, almost a touchdown favorite, which kind of leads into an interesting kind of tidbit this week.
Well, again, teaser always is yelling at us about when it's a teaser week and
barking at us. Barking at us.
This is another week that we look at the schedule, and you've got about half the schedule where you've got teams that are a touchdown or close to a touchdown up to 10-point favorites. So it becomes a big teaser week, and the sportsbooks will be looking for one of these 7-point, 9-point underdogs to be pulling an outright upset to be able to have a decent day. Otherwise, if all these teams win on the money line and cover their teasers, it poses for a bad week going in. And this is probably going to be one of the key games when we look at the teaser, as you said, just short of a touchdown. Going to be a lot of teasers taking the Saints down to a pick 'em or plus 1 point, somewhere in that range. So the sportsbooks, this is going to be one of their big needs of the week. Is the New York Jets, as almost always.
Right.
The Jets are
the Jets, the Texans, the Jags, all teams we've talked
a big need
about,
of the
right?
week. But we saw a little bit of the development or non-development of Taysom Hill last week. Obviously, from a standpoint of running the football, and when he's able to get the run game going, he poses a lot of problems for defense. And I know last week he hurt his finger in the middle of the game, and that kind of led to some of the errant throws. But he had really 4 bad interceptions against that Cowboys team last week that essentially cost them the game. And so getting Kamara back, you saw last week what the Eagles were able to do to the Jets, kind of just run through them with Gainwell and
a lot
Sanders.
of screens and things like that, which
so
really is Kamara's game.
It bodes well the Saints to kind of do exactly what the Eagles did to them, and the Saints defense is a little bit better than what that Eagles defense did. So this is one of these games where we're looking for maybe Hill to have a couple more of those bad picks, or maybe Kamara's a little bit rusty and can put the ball in the ground or something like that. Because
they probably
big need is the Jets.
They probably won't have Ingram. He's in COVID protocol, so it's probably going to be a lot of Kamara in that game if he's healthy to go the full game. Atlanta and Carolina. Carolina comes off their bye. They fired offensive coordinator Joe Brady during their bye week. He was the LSU's offensive coordinator when they had that great run with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Jefferson. They want to run the ball more, according to Matt Rule. 54% of the tickets are on Atlanta. both these two offenses have really struggled. And you look at these two teams, they've gone under exclusively the last 5 weeks, both of them. They both struggle putting points on the board, and Carolina comes out of their bye. It wasn't that long ago that we were looking at them. Don't forget they were 3-0, that we thought early in the season they would be in that wild card hunt. But I think both these teams need to get a win pretty bad.
Yeah, again, missing pieces of the puzzle for both these teams. Atlanta without Ridley. And what they're facing there, the development of Pitts. Matt Ryan hasn't been particularly good. Obviously, Patterson's had a great season for them.
Been phenomenal.
Been absolutely fantastic.
He saved that team.
Carolina struggled in a stretch on defense there. Robbie Anderson's all but disappeared from that offense. Obviously, no McCaffrey, so you're depending on Chuba Hubbard, and we'd have a little bit of a quarterback mess going on in Carolina right now with what's going on there. So they've got to find DJ Moore this week. That's the player that I think they're looking to get the ball to. But like you said, they've emphasized and want to run the football. I just don't know that they have the tools and the linemen to be able to run the ball consistently.
We'll see on that game. Denver and Detroit. Detroit comes off their first win. Last play of the game, they beat Minnesota. 60% of the tickets are on Denver in this game. Both teams, the last 5 games, have gone under. Not a lot of scoring for both these two teams. Detroit on the road, we've started to see this number tick up. It opened up a little over a touchdown. It's starting to get closer to double digits, not quite there yet. Big game for Denver to kind of maybe keep that wild card, dream alive a little bit. But bettors are backing him a little bit right now.
Yeah, and this is one of those, a team that's got no shot at a playoff versus a team that's got a shot at a playoff. And that
dome team traveling outside.
Home team happens to be the team that's got the playoff shot going for them. Denver did play a pretty good game in Kansas City last week. We're able to hold the Chiefs to a lot of field goals. So that defense did the job that they were supposed to do. Just on the offensive side of the football, they weren't able to get it done. Williams has been absolutely fantastic from a running standpoint for them. They've got to find something in this passing game, whether it's from Judy or Sutton or Fant. Bridgewater's got to be able to get the balls to these guys. And normally, Detroit is an absolutely fantastic team to get you healthy and make you feel better about yourself. And obviously, Detroit traveling on the road going to Denver. This is a spot where Denver may be able to find some offense and get feel good about what they're doing.
Yeah, they need a win here again to kind of stay in that wild card mix. Giants Chargers. Chargers had a big win last week against Cincinnati. They're still really in that playoff hunt. 77% of the tickets are on the Chargers. There's a chance they'll have no Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen. Eckler's a little bit banged up, but they're not going against the Giants' first or second quarterback. They're going against their third-string quarterback.
Well, somebody they had to actually picked up.
Right.
Yeah, I think he came off the Buffalo practice squad. So we're going to see Fromm, and this game's a mess. It's in a circle. One of the games that we're not taking full limits on just because of how what a disaster this Giants team has kind of turned into on an offensive side of the football, and like you talked about, the Chargers with a lot of question marks. But the Chargers coming off an absolutely huge win on the road at Cincinnati last week, so they had a couple hiccups, a couple bad losses in there. But to go into Cincinnati and really jump out to a 24-0 lead, kind of blow it, and then get the key turnover to kind of open the game back up. This Charger team's got to be kind of sky high, getting themselves back in this playoff picture. And this becomes a big spot for them and against a team that, again, might not have much to offer on the offensive side of the football.
The next two games, Jay, really are kind of interesting before we get into the primetime games. Kind of like we talked about with Pitt and Minnesota. You've got San Francisco and Cincinnati. Two teams that are a little bit of that Jekyll and Hyde, both kind of on the outside. Cincinnati's in it right now, but they both need to keep winning. And the bettors are kind of torn too. 51% of the tickets are on Cincinnati, so almost a 50-50 split. San Francisco did not play good last week against Seattle. Cincinnati didn't play good against the Chargers. Frisco's been a better team on the road than they have at home this year, but I think this is a big game for both these teams to kind of get back into that wild card hunt.
Yeah, and again, from a San Francisco 49ers standpoint, we don't know who's going to be available in their backfield. We've got massive question marks.
Heisty, right?
Yeah, between Wilson and Mitchell and all of their running backs seem to be banged up. So this could be we finally saw George Kittle make an appearance this season.
2 touchdowns last week.
With the huge game at Seattle. Brandon Ayuk has found his way back into this offense and a big piece of the offense. Deebo Samuel, who had been their kind of jack of all trades.
That's the key without him.
Out of the running game and the passing game. He missed the game at Seattle. There's a possibility that he might be back for this week, and that would be a big development for them. And Cincinnati, again, they've done it. They found their way back into that game with the Chargers. Mixon has been absolutely fantastic on the running side. Higgins, the last 2 games, has been really, really good. They just had some bad turnovers and some special teams. So this is, this is one of those ones we circle up because this is really one of the better games of the week.
Absolutely,
where you have 2 teams that are playoff-type teams battling it out. And
who need to win. Right.
Yeah, Cincinnati will get to see what Pittsburgh does, and then they've got the Browns playing the Ravens. So within their division, there's going to be a couple potential losses there, but this becomes a massive game on both these teams.
I think it's interesting, too. The ticket count is kind of split, but it's a Cincinnati team that opened up one, and it's flipped to San Francisco, the favorite now. Maybe a product of Joe Burrow, who does have the finger injury as well, didn't practice that much all week. They're a little bit banged up at wide receiver, but bettors have kind of, although again, 50-50 ticket count, have kind of started to favor San Francisco a little bit. Now for me, the marquee game on Sunday of the week, it's Buffalo against Tampa. Bettors are really backing Tampa early on in this game, 68% on the Bucks. Shame on Buffalo for losing that game at home against the Patriots. Mac Jones only had to throw 3 times. I mean, you knew they were going to run the ball, and you still couldn't stop them. They couldn't stop Taylor 2 weeks ago. I'm worried about Buffalo now. I mean, they're a team that, they play Tampa here. In 2 weeks, they play at New England. They could find themselves on the outside looking in. And several weeks ago, when we looked at AFC versus NFC Super Bowl, it was based on Buffalo being the team in the AFC. Tampa's Tampa. They're, undefeated at home. I think it's a tough spot for Buffalo to go into after that big loss against the Patriots on Monday night, and Tampa's a little over a field goal favorite here.
Well, they have to thaw out Buffalo. After what we saw on Monday, and don't ask the secondary guys for Buffalo on why they can't stop the run. And this isn't something new. What New England was able to do against them is exactly what
Jonathan Taylor did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, they can't stop the run, and not that Tampa
can't run either, and I think that's what really hurts Buffalo.
Not that Tampa wants to run the football, but Tampa is fully capable of having that Leonard Fournette big game and bringing in Jones to have them run the football. So if Buffalo struggles to stop the run again this week, you can bet that Tom Brady is going to continue to call that running game and just run the ball down their throats. And it's not been the Josh Allen that we've seen. Now again, the weather conditions played a part in what they were able to do passing wise, but you can see even in when they were going against that wind, they were able to throw the football on, and you just wonder when they had the wind at their backs why they weren't so even more aggressive in getting that passing game going, and the weapons that they have there with Diggs and Sanders. I mean, they've got the tools, and you brought it up, just the lack of running game and Singletary and Moss and Breida, and Breida's got a couple good passes out of the backfield, but they haven't been able to generate that run game, which lets that defense kind of rush Josh Allen and leaves Allen kind of in a scramble mode. So I think that, again, you talk about Buffalo really struggling. They still have the pieces of the puzzle
absolutely
to drop back, and Tampa's secondary, the Tampa best part of that defense is they stop the run game. Well, Buffalo doesn't really want to run the football.
They
Buffalo
can't run it.
Wants to throw the football. So this is kind of matching up what teams do best versus what they do worst. And obviously it's a much needed game for Buffalo sitting where they're at now. They've got 2 easy games, I believe, at the end of the year. I think they play Atlanta and the Jets, their last 2 games of the season, but they've got a really, really tough road that they lose this one, they're going to find themselves out of that playoff picture trying to find their way back in.
And still having to play at New England before the season's over. I think it's interesting because if they do decide, hey, we're going to try to stop the run, you put 7 or 8 guys in the box, Brady's going to be looking at there and with Gronk and with Godwin and Evans and say, I can pick you apart over the top too. So it's a Buffalo team that really has to get well on defense pretty quick. Primetime games. I own you. Aaron Rodgers against the Bears. I mean, if the Bears have any pride, do you step up and play in this game? I mean, when a guy says that to your crowd in your stadium, but 75% of the tickets are on the Green Bay Packers here. It is going to be Justin Fields for the Bears, but it's just a different Bear team now with no Mack and no Robinson. I mean, you've kind of lost the heart and soul of that team on both sides of the ball. Not knowing what's going to happen with Nagy when the season's over right now. Packers are still in that hunt for the number 1 seed in the NFC. We're going to be huge Bear fans come Sunday night on our side of the counter.
Yeah, and the Packers were able to come off their bye week, and so any issues that Rodgers might have had with his foot, maybe they've healed up a little bit. Aaron Jones kind of has been looking to get healthy, so if there's any time the Packers are getting healthy, and if you watch the Bears game and watch what they did against the Cardinals last week, I think...
Wait a minute, what they didn't do against the Cardinals last week.
Murray, I think, had to complete 11 passes on the day, so they were able to just run the football on the Bears, and the bad turnovers, get the ball in good field position. So the Bears have just been a mess, and
maybe the weather will be as bad as it was in Buffalo.
They played the Packers tight for 3 quarters.
They did.
And then kind of fell apart. And so, this is a stand-up and pride type of game, but Green Bay's got, bigger goals in mind, and this is just another team in the way, and that's why you see such a big point spread here, almost up to 2 touchdowns for Sunday Night Football, and this probably would have been flexed off of Sunday Night Football if it wasn't for the just natural awesome rivalry of Bears-Packers. But to see this big spread, and like I said, Aaron Rodgers and that team seem to be on a mission to find themselves way back to the top of that NFC.
When you look at the NFC, I know that Arizona sits on top of it right now, but I think you can make a serious case that both Tampa and the Packers are the 2 teams that everybody kind of thinks right now are one of those 2 teams are going to be playing in LA in February. The other primetime game, it's the Rams against the Cardinals. As we touched on, Cardinals do sit in that number 1 spot right now, 7-0 on the road. All road wins by 10 points or more. They're at home here. They've already beaten the Rams once by 10 points or more. I think if the Cards win here, it solidifies them as the top team in the NFC. If the Rams win, they make it interesting, not only in the whole NFC, but in the NFC West as well. But action's been on the Cards, or on the Rams. 58% of the tickets are on the Cards, but the numbers actually dropped from 3 to 2.5.
Yeah, and again, the Rams didn't look very good for several weeks, and then kind of got that get-right game by having Jacksonville come and visit them, and so they were able to get Sony Michel running with Darrell Henderson missing the game. Stafford was able to find Cooper Kupp. He was able to get Odell Beckham involved. So they're finding pieces of the puzzle, but Matt Stafford hasn't been the Matt Stafford that he was in those first couple games of the season. He's missed some throws. He's had some errant throws. One of my big question marks is on Arizona. Obviously, we saw them beat the Bears last week. Kyler Murray's first game back after I think he missed 4 or 5 games in there. Hopkins hasn't been a big part of that offense, so they're starting to get their pieces of the puzzle back in there as well.
Connor's been great, though.
Yeah. But this is, again, McVay. This is one of the teams McVay has absolutely owned. The Rams. You go back, I think it's like 8-1 in their last starts.
And the one was this year.
Up until they lost this year,
Yep.
He was undefeated against the Cardinals. So he's always kind of had that way to find a way to beat the Cardinals, and this will be a tough trip down to Arizona on Monday night. But you talk about the battle in the NFC. This is going to be a huge monster game on Monday night to determine playoff positions.
I mean, again, for me, I look at the Cardinals, and I know they're so good, but I still have, the Cowboys, maybe the Rams, the Bucks, and the Packers kind of ahead of them a little bit. But if they win this game, I think it really solidifies them as the top team in the NFC. And if they lose it, it really opens up the door for a lot to happen. Packers already beaten them once. I think it opens up the door for Green Bay to be the number 1 seed, which I hate to say.
You talk about electric quarterbacks, and Kyler Murray just fits that mold. Is he can do everything, and he can bail you out of situations, and he makes bad plays good plays. And with the development of James Conner there, and they're going to get Edmonds. Looks like he's going to come off the IR to get back this week. So Arizona's getting healthy again with getting the players back on the field. They've just been getting it done week after week after week, and this is another. Like you said, this game has got some intrigue to it.
Oh, it absolutely
just
does.
Because
it's going to be fun to watch.
The split and the McVay matchup, and again, where we're heading from battling for the NFC playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. So we've kind of broken down all the games for Sunday right now. We're going to come back for our last segment, which is one of Jay and my favorite segments. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to betting. So we'll be right back on Bookends, guys.
Locals, here's how easy it is to start betting on games with the STN Sports App. They have sign-up locations across Las Vegas, so no matter where you are, you're less than 5 minutes away from getting started. They have convenient withdrawal and deposit options, so you can access your money at any time, even from the comfort of home. And once you're in, you're in. You can bet on all major sports even as the action is happening with a huge in-play wagering menu. So download the STN Sports App today and get started betting with the local favorite for over 40 years.
Hey, everybody. We're back again for the sports betting podcast Bookends. This is our final segment. And before we kind of jump into the good, the bad, and the ugly, let's talk about UFC 269, highlighted by Poirier and Oliveira this weekend. Great undercard as well. A lot of different wagering options on the board and STN Sports.
Yeah, we've got a ton of props up on the Poirier fight. You've also got Nunez fighting on this card against Pena, France against Garbrandt. So there's a lot of decent fights on the board. And like we said, we've exploded this prop menu. So you not only have like the knockout rounds, You've got submissions, decisions, over/under round wagering. So a lot of stuff to bet on the UFC this weekend.
Right, UFC's been great, and then VGK's back. I mean, you look at the Knights right now, 3 straight wins. Bettors are backing them again. We're on the edge of our seat every night, hoping they don't get that empty net goal to cover the puck line, but they've won 3 straight. They've got a couple of home games coming up, and then a rough road stretch that's right on the horizon.
Yeah, again, we've talked about their early struggles with missing a lot of pieces of the puzzle, and now they're getting all the guys back, and you see what getting Stone and Pacioretty on the ice together can mean to this team with a monster win over Calgary the other night as they're top of the division, and then a big win over Dallas where they got down, had to pull Leonard out of net, and then found their way back in the game. So
I think they were down 3-1 and then 4-2. Yeah. It was really an exciting finish in that game.
So a big comeback for them, and they'll host the Flyers on Friday night, who's a team that's lost 10 straight games and fired their coach, and then they get kind of a tough battle. So hopefully it's a good win for them against the Flyers, and then they'll host Minnesota Wild, who are the number 1 team in the Western Conference right now, and then they go on an East Coast road trip where they'll play Boston, in Boston, the Devils, the Islanders, and the Rangers. So get to have some New York time in late December here, or mid-December, but that should be a tough trip. But they're finding their way back. They're getting healthy.
That's the key, right? I was going to touch on that as well. Yeah.
The guys that were, the kind of role players that kind of had to step up during this time and fill kind of bigger time on the ice, and now they go back to their roles, but they've got that confidence to go on, leads to good things, and that's what we've kind of seen over the last couple of days.
Right, they're in 4th place in their division, but slowly making their way up. And Jack Eichel's skating right now, so you might be looking at another couple of months before he's on the ice to really help that team as well. All right, now our favorite segment, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We can always hear that music that John keys up in the background, a little Clint Eastwood music. The good, it's bowl season. And let's go bowling. I mean, there's 44 bowl games. We touched on the 2 playoff games that I think are phenomenal, but there's a lot of good games. And there's days where you've got games starting early in the day until late in the evening. Again, great time to have STN Sports. But I love bowl season.
Yeah, so we're going to be kind of absence of the bowls as we head into this weekend, and that Friday, December 17th is the start of the bowl games, and those bowl games will run essentially every day till the 31st and the 1st. Then we'll skip to the 4th, and then we'll get the championship on the 10th. But a lot of daytime football being played all over the country. Some really good matchups. Obviously, we talk about the national championship game, but one of the ones that I'm really intrigued by is Oklahoma State playing Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. Obviously, Freeman taking over as a coach in Notre Dame, and if you've watched any of those videos and some of his speeches, from a Chicago guy, Notre Dame fan, you kind of get some goosebumps in watching the way he speaks about the program. And Oklahoma State, obviously a very capable Big 12 team, going to lose their defensive coordinator who's taking a job elsewhere. So we'll see what they're able to come. But Notre Dame kind of feels like a short field goal favorite in that game. Talk about the Las Vegas Bowl with Arizona State coming here to play Wisconsin, another Big 10 team.
Wisconsin travels really well, too, so my guess is you're going to see a large contingent of Badger fans here for that game.
Yeah, and a team that in Wisconsin that really struggled kind of the beginning of the season, and Mertz and that offense were able to find their way late in the season, and kind of the opposite for Arizona State, a team that played really, really well throughout the beginning part of the season and kind of had a little bit of a downplay near the end of the season. And Jaden Daniels, their electric quarterback, has announced that he's going to come back and play another year at Arizona State. So maybe that gives them some confidence to build up in a bowl game here. But again, it should be an exciting game. So I think it's that Thursday, December 30th, if you get a chance to get your tickets and get out to the Las Vegas Bowl and be able to watch some high-level college football at Allegiant Stadium.
I think one of the key things about the bowls, too, and you touched on it a little bit with Freeman taking over at Notre Dame, is all the coaching changes and the marquee players that aren't going to play. We know that Kenny Pickett's not going to play for Pitt. Thibodeau's not going to play for Oregon. Oregon and Oklahoma are playing each other. Both have coaching changes. So I think that's something to kind of factor in and look at, too, when you look at all these bowls, that there's going to be a lot of these big players that potentially opt out. And what's the impact of some of these coaching changes? We've seen some line moves with those as well.
Yeah, in particular was the Nevada versus Western Michigan.
Right.
We saw Nevada open up almost over a touchdown favorite. Their coach announced that he was leaving and kind of questioned whether Carson Strong, the incredible quarterback for Nevada, will play in that game. And so that game's actually gone to Western Michigan being a favorite. So a monster line move there. And, over these next 2 weeks, you're going to see all kinds of storylines, and unfortunately players that are ruled academically ineligible or find themselves in trouble over the next 2 weeks, or even more coaching changes. So one of the more difficult things is this kind of week and a half.
Opting out, too, is a big
week
thing.
And a half, 3 weeks of bowl games. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. So it's important to get the information, pay attention to what's going on in social media, and use that as a handicapping tool to make sure to picture bowl season. The other thing from a bowl standpoint is, go do some homework. There's a lot of handicapping strategies that can be done.
There's trends,
looking
strategies,
at how conferences have fared in bowl games. How the MAC has played over years, how the Big Ten has played over the years. This isn't when you start to get conference versus conference, you think that this team's the better team, but playing in a conference, we talk about the Oklahomas and Texas are excellent Big 12 teams, but as they make their move to the SEC in 2023, what will they do in SEC play? So take a look at some of those conference matchups. You might be able to find something that you like in a particular matchup.
So that's the good. It's let's go bowling. That's the good. The bad is, for me, it's scoring in pro football. I mean, we saw last year, record scoring. We've seen changes in the rules, that there seems like there's pass interference called on every deep ball. You can't really hit the quarterback. No horse collar tackles. The helmet to helmet. There's so many things that kind of favor the offensive teams. And again, with no fans last year, we saw so much scoring. Yet this year, if you look at from day 1 through week 13, unders have been hitting at a 57% clip. And if you go the last 30 days, unders are at a 62% clip. So if you love scoring, there just isn't a lot of that going on in pro football right now.
Well, I think, again, it comes down to, I don't know whether you want to call it parity or mediocrity. There are several teams.
There's a lot of bad teams.
That are in today's game that are just, we talk about, bet against the Jets, the Lions, the Texans. There's a lot of bad football teams out there. The Bears, and
the
even
Jags,
some of the
Bears.
Even some of the teams
offensively, they can't generate
middle
anything.
of the road teams that are dead under teams. We talk about Washington. You talk about the Giants. Talk about Seattle. These are teams that are somewhat decent football teams that play a lot of low scoring games. And watching games last week, we were commenting early Sunday, probably about 11 o'clock, that we'd already seen like 5 extra points being missed on touchdowns. So all that stuff is leading to the lower scoring portion of the game.
Even Carolina, Atlanta, the Saints, all Denver, all Detroit, all teams that just, you look at the last month, every game they've played has been under. They're just not generating points right now.
And you talk about the other aspect of it, and it's hard from a standpoint of bookmaking and cheering for games, but there's no doubt that the officiating has a lot to do with why these games are staying under. You talk about the pass interference calls that are being called, and I'm sure there's a whole other side of the fence that are the pass interference calls that aren't being called. We had the one late in that Raider game this past week where I think it was Zay Jones that was running
his
deep.
Jersey was being pulled, and there was no call.
And it was, again, that went our way of the book, but I'm sure there was a lot of people that said, that was a pass interference call. So each week, again, it's what's pass interference, what's not pass interference. We watch the Saints game cheering like crazy for the Saints, and we're getting holding calls that are
Would
bringing
you want
touchdown
pass interference to be reviewable?
I think everything should be reviewable. Again, I'm not in any hurry to get the game. I'm watching football from 10 o'clock till 7 o'clock at night on Sunday, so it's not important for me that a game only takes 2.5 hours or 3 hours. If the game takes 3.5 hours or 4 hours, I don't care. Get the calls right so that we can, from a betting standpoint and a fairness standpoint, everything's on the way it should be. It's too tough to watch these games and have questionable calls. I mean, we can go back weeks and weeks and weeks and pick out games of where did this call come from? Why was this called? And it's a harder part of the game, and it makes the game even more unexpected because the officials at some point in time are going to make a key call here or there that's going to go your way or not go your way.
Yeah, it's just amazing at the lack of scoring or the amount of unders that we've seen so far. So we've touched on the good, we've touched on the bad, and now it's the ugly. And we're going to kind of skip to a different league right now. It's the association, where there just happens to be a kind of an ugly team in the association.
Yeah, there's a lot of ugly teams in the association, and at the beginning of the year, I felt bad for the Orlando Magic. I looked at that roster and the over/under projection wins on them.
He felt bad for him.
Yeah,
from the bookmaking side of it.
The Orlando Magic were going to have a
right.
hard time going and winning games and staying competitive, and they find themselves at, I think they're 5-21 this year, but a team that had the number one pick and. Detroit Pistons currently on a 10-game losing streak. Their record is 4-20. They've had a couple competitive games. They find themselves going into overtimes and losing games there. But all too often they find themselves with leads that they just absolutely collapse in the fourth quarters. It's like I almost measure it to UConn football or UMass football that they're just so bad that teams coddle them or play through the first half and through the third quarter and then just absolutely say, okay, well, let's go win this game now. But, let's find a way for the Detroit.
How do you really feel about Detroit?
It's just, all too often we're cheering for bad teams. We're cheering for the teams that are the underdogs. Teaser, talks to me about this, barks at me about this all the time. That, we need these bad teams to play well. And so the Magic and the Pelicans and the Pistons, these are teams that we're constantly rooting for. And unfortunately, they make me then have to watch the games. So I've had to watch a lot of Detroit Piston games, and they're pathetic. They've got to find a way to stay in these games a little bit further. So my ugly goes out to the Detroit Pistons, and let's pick it up, Detroit.
All right. So you've heard our good, bad, and the ugly on the Pistons, but we always enjoy being here with you guys. And again, get signed up for STN Sports. We know that it's such a busy time of year for everybody and so many things going on. It's just great with all the bowl games that are going to happen, and hockey and basketball and football. There's just a lot of cool stuff going on right now. UFC, get signed up for STN Sports, up to a $100 bonus, the cool cap, STN Sports cap, and will be a lot going on. So we'll see you guys.
A lot of funding options on the STN Sports app. Whether it's Pay Near Me, Play Plus, Global Payments, a lot of different ways to get your money in and out on the app, so don't have to come down to the book. So check out some of those funding options.
And the kiosks. Skip the line. If you come in and it's busy, you can use the kiosk to make a deposit and wager on as well. So we'll see you guys next week on another segment of the Sports Bookmaking Podcast, Bookends. He's Jason. This is our buddy Teaser. We'll see how loud he is or isn't barking this weekend. I'm Chucky. You guys have a great week. Thanks.